Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we're learning Ketubot, page 48, which discusses the various obligations that a husband has for his wife. And the Torah says that Sherik Susvona, that he has to provide mazonos, food, also clothing, and ona is marital relations. Now in this, the Talmud tells us something which goes against one of the biggest lies when it comes to marriage, which is totally false. And that is that when it comes to a husband and wife, when they have marital relations with one another, they are not allowed to be naked. On the contrary, they need to actually have a blanket or a sheet covering them completely so that they're not even touching one another except for their genitalia. And some people even falsely say that they would cut a hole in a sheet. And as the Talmud here tells us, that in fact the Torah, when it says that she'era, it's referring to kirub basar. It's not enough to have relations with your wife, but you need to have kirub basar, which means literally one's flesh is close to another. In other words, it's flesh against flesh, that one is naked as well as his spouse. And the Talmud tells us something unbelievable. Shul yinhag ba minig parsim. The Persians are the ones, apparently at least back then, that's what they used to do, as people think the Jewish people did. Shemishamshin mitoisen bilvu shehem. That they actually did have relations with one another while wearing clothing. However, this is something which is not only something which is not done, the Torah itself says you're not allowed to have relations with your wife in this way. And then the Talmud says something even more unbelievable. It says that if a person says, I do not want to have relations with you, I will still have relations with you, according to the required stipulation, minimum amount of time that a husband has to have relations with his wife, and which we'll discuss exactly depending on that person and maybe his job, how many times. But it says, if I will have relations with you, my wife, however, it's only ani bevigdi v'hi bevigda. I'm wearing clothes during this act, and so must you. On this, the Talmud says, Yotzi v'nosing ksuba. She has every right to walk out of this marriage and to demand her full compensation as found in the ksuba. This is totally unacceptable, and this is totally against Jewish belief. When it comes to the level of intimacy between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, it is not to be done in this way. And as the famous joke, if you will, which maybe some people don't think it's a joke, that there was a man that actually approached a rabbi and he said, I don't understand, how could it be that you have relations with your wife in this fashion with a hole? So he said, it's not true. Of course it's against Judaism. So he said, it's not true, Rabbi. I saw hanging up on a clothes hanger one of these blankets, and there was a sheet with a big hole in the middle, and there were these strings that were on all four corners of this unusual garment, and apparently you use them to tie on the edges of your bed or some sort. So the rabbi said, no, you're thinking of tzitzis. And he proceeded to show him the four-cornered garment on which he was wearing. This man looked at the rabbi and said, "Oh, you mean you wear it also?" But again, this is an important thing to recognize, that Judaism understands the absolute necessity of intimacy, that there's supposed to be times that you're supposed to be intimate with your spouse, and to be in a sexless marriage is something which is totally against Jewish belief. But not only that, but it must be done in the proper way as prescribed, and therefore it must be without clothes.